Great. Okay, we will start as usual with our invocation. So just closing the eyes. Sahana bhavatu sahano bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahe tejasvinavaditamastu ma vitvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om. So welcome everyone. It's nice to see you all here on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. And so today is talk 3. And so I'll start by talking about the aims and the objectives of what we want to achieve today. And so I'm hoping that everyone who weren't here last time have had the chance to catch up. But if not, it's all right. I'm sure you'll be able to pick it up. So what we want to do today is to introduce the concept of atman. So I'm going to use, this is one of the few Sanskrit words that I'm going to use, the reason I want to use this term is because the translation is kind of very confusing. So we would maybe translate it as the self, and then which might be all right, but then there's the big self, the small self, and then some people might translate it as a soul, and then we'll think, well, what is a soul in different religions and all that, you know, so it can get very messy. So therefore I'll keep it simple and we'll just talk about atman, and you'll get the idea. So so the objectives of what we want to do is to be able to do to understand atman. We're going to recap on the concept of the 3 bodies that we looked at last time, and we're going to look at the 3 states, so which would be no surprise, and then would look at something which is called 5 sheaths, and I'll explain all that. And now, just the thing to note is that the Sanskrit word, I've put them in green, and most of them you can just ignore and don't worry about them at all, except for atman, of course. Okay, so, and then I'll also talk about what the 5 sheaths are and how they relate to the 3 bodies, etc. And then we're going to see about the concept of atman. So we looked at the physical body last time. So this is what you can see, the most visible, and got eyes, ears, nose, skin, and tongue, and which I call the sense organs, if you like. And then we said that the physical body is made up of the 5 elements, so water, earth, water, fire, air, ether. So they are in decreasing or increasing order of being subtle. So earth is kind of solid, and then when we go to ether, it's kind of a little bit more fluid, if you like. And then we've said that the physical body is nourished by food, and it experiences pleasure and pain, and the physical body is subject to the 6 types of modification, so birth, existence, growth, aging, decay, and death. And so we experience the physical body in the waking state, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And then it's gained by deeds from previous lives. Okay, so this is something again that we will talk in about 3 or 4 sessions time. And oh, sorry. Okay, so the subtle body, so we talked about it last time, and it cannot be seen, it cannot be perceived and touched, but we know it's there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hearing me if you just had ears, but then there was no, or the perception was not there. So if you like, it's the power behind the ears that makes it that you can hear. And I couldn't see you if there was not that subtle thing behind the ears, if you like, the power, the life energy behind the eyes, which makes it that I can actually see you. So, and then we talked about the organs of action, which is speech, grasping with the hands, walking, excretion, procreation. So I've written them all down, which I didn't do last time. So somebody had asked me to write them all down, so they're all here. And then there are 5 pranas, so which kind of explains in a little bit more detail about how our body works and the various functions of the subtle body. And then, of course, there is the mind and the intellect, and we'll look at those two in a little bit more detail again today. And then we know that we experience the subtle body in the waking state, otherwise we wouldn't see, hear, etc., and also in the dream states. And again, this is gained by deeds from the past. So, okay, so now, sorry, I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, okay, there we go. So the causal body. The causal body was a third body that we looked at. So it is the cause for the 2 other bodies. So it is also, it is not describable. We can't really describe what it is like. And it is the seed. It is there in a potential kind of form. So it's not manifest in something. So therefore, we use this word about seed. So it is experienced in waking, dream, and deep sleep. So it is one that is unexplainable, and it doesn't have a beginning. So and in the form of truth, and it's the cause for the 2 other bodies. So there is this this word that we're going to be using quite a lot, which is kind of, we use the word ignorant. Ignorant here means that it is not aware of its true nature. So that's what ignorance means in this instance. So again, so one of the questions that I had last time was, well, is the causal body what the atman is? And definitely not, because it's a body, and the atman is beyond any of these bodies. Okay, so and the causal body is. Sometimes we kind of wonder, like, where do we come from? We know that we come from our parents. Where did our parents come from? Our parents. But then if you go back to, at one point, how did it all start? And that's where this kind of thing starts, and where we don't really know. So this is what we kind of say is unexplainable. It is without a beginning, and we don't really, it's not like a linear kind of thing when it happened or whatever. So it's just this concept of the causal body. Okay, so now we're going to park the 3 bodies for a few moments, and I'm going to kind of bring it all together later on about why I'm talking about the 3 bodies and why I'm talking about these various things. But for now, just please indulge with me and bear with me. So the 3 states of experience are pretty simple. So they are the waking state. I'm hoping all of us are in the waking state. So if not, then that's okay too. And so in the waking state, senses are perceived by the sense organs. So we're able to see, we're able to feel, we're able to do quite a lot of things in the waking state. So the dream state, which is slightly more interesting in some ways, is what it is. It's a world that we create ourselves in our mind when we're dreaming, right? So the word that is often used, the technical word, if you like, it's a projected world. So it's something that we project ourselves. And what is it based on? So I don't know if any of you are into dreams and you know, about what how to dream interpretation and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know very much about it, but what I know is that why do we dream, and where do these dreams come from? So they come from impressions that are strong enough sometimes, whether we know it or not, that we acquire from the sense organs. So there are things that we feel, or the sense perceptions as well. So there are things that we feel, things that we see, things that we hear, and these are all things that go into our mind. And then you can think of it a little bit, if you like a bit of a computer. There is the memory, there's the RAM, which is just the short-term memory, and then there is the slightly long-term memory, the hard disk. So basically, all these things that we see that happens to us in the waking state, we gets imprinted into that hard disk, and then it kind of froze out in the dream state. So basically, it's where these things haven't been lived, and then you experience them in the dream state. So I'll come back to that. And the other idea that is important about the dream state is that there is withdrawal from the physical body. So there's total separation, right? So I think I mentioned it last time. I mean, in a dream, I can be an athlete where I know that I can't run for toffee, so it's just, so you there is no physical body involved, and so we just dissociate ourselves with the physical body completely, and we know it is possible. And so here, senses are perceived, but not by sense organs. So you can smell cheese, chocolate in your dream, or you can feel hot, you can feel cold, you can feel all these things, but it's not the person next to you in the same room is not feeling the same thing. So it's not actually happening. It's just something that you're projecting, but not by the sense organs, just by your memories and by things that you have experienced yourself. So this is about the dream state, and now we go on to deep sleep. So deep sleep is a state of ignorance. So again, ignorance is where we don't know what is real, what's not real, what is permanent, what is not permanent, and so here the mind and the intellect are absent, right? So we know about that when we get up in the morning after having had deep sleep. You've had deep sleep. You don't know what happened, and you're like, oh, I had such a good sleep. I feel so rested. It was great. So we know we were there, but we're totally ignorant of what actually happened. So it's not a state that we can comprehend once we wake up. Okay, so that hence that word saying it's a state of ignorance. Okay, so now I move on to these sheaths. So we looked at the body, we looked at the states, the three states, and now we're going to go to the sheaths. Okay, this word sheaths is unnecessarily complicated. I mean, you can think of it as a covering. You can think of it as an encasement. I don't even know whether that is a word or not, but it's just something that's covering. So, if sometimes I think of it as an onion, it's got layers and layers and layers, right? So it's that idea of covering is what we're talking about. And in some textbooks, they kind of talk about it in terms of a sword, and its case and covered by that, and then you can't see what's inside. But anyway, so the idea is just the covering, is just the things that you can't see within the body, and here there is a representation, but it's not quite like that. It's not one on top of the other, and it's not like that at all. This is just something so that we can try and understand it. So in Sanskrit, it is called kosha. So that's what it's called. And here on the left hand side is the English translation, and then the Sanskrit names are on the right. So the food sheath is the Annamaya kosha. The vital air sheath is the pranamaya kosha, which prana you know. Mental sheath is the manomaya kosha, and intellectual sheath is the vijnana namaya kosha, and then the blissful sheath, which is the anandamaya kosha. And as I've said, you don't need to know any of these names or whatever. It's just to get the gist of it, really. So by the end, if you forget all this, that's fine. If you just remember the last slide, that would be fine. So the food sheath is very much similar to the physical body that we talked about, right? So we come from the food that our parents ate. Okay, so and then that's what so you know our parent ate, and then that's how we grow. From an embryo and then a fetus, and then grow into a full baby, and here we are. So food is how we came about. Food is what sustains us, and then when we die, we go back to earth and being food for others. So this is kind of uncomfortable for people, but then this is the truth. This is the cycle. So the body goes away. And and one way that I like to think about it is just like clothes, right? So you buy clothes is made of thread, you wear it, you wash it, you take care of it, and then you change clothes, right? And then you just get rid of that clothes. It's just too old and you can't do with it anymore. It's not serving you, it's not covering enough, and there we go. So that's really what it is. And so I'm going to talk, well, I've talked about the food sheath, and now I'm going to talk about the vital air sheath. So here there are the sense perceptions, so the touch, hearing, and then there is also the instruments for enjoying pleasure. So we've looked at that, and we looked at this. So it's very similar to what we said earlier on. So it's very similar to the subtle body that we've already looked at. So it's just another way of looking at the same thing. It's just another kind, if you like, of framework to look at the same thing. So whoops, sorry, my mouse is there's something wrong with my mouse, and I'm really sorry. I don't really know how. Okay. Okay, well, I can't seem to be able to get it. Oh, there we go. Okay, we've done that one. Right, so now we go on to the three other sheaths, which is the mental sheath, intellectual sheath, the blissful sheath. So in the mental sheath, there is identification of the self with the mind. So, and this is where we feel things, there are emotions, and we also feel this with our sense organs. So we see things and we feel things. So these go together, and this is where we kind of think about all the emotions that we go through in a day. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm elated, I'm sleepy. All these come under the mental sheath. And then there is also this idea of memory, again, in the mental sheath. So, and also there is this idea of doubt. So the mind is always questioning, the mind is always kind of oscillating. And, you know, sometimes where in common parlance, we kind of like, my mind is tossing and I'm dithering between this and that. And, you know, so these are really the characteristics of the mind. That's what it is. That's what it does. And the intellectual sheath is actually to do with the intellect. And here it is the deciding faculty. So it helps us to decide. It helps us to make a decision. It helps us to assert. It uses all the knowledge that we have somehow stored from being little or from wherever, and then it helps us reach a conclusion, right? So for instance, if you smell, I think I used this example last time. So it's if you can smell something, and then you kind of think, oh yes, I know this smell. and then you will know, you will try and identify with other smells that you've experienced, and then you'll think, oh yeah, this is hot chocolate smell, for instance. So this is what the intellect does, is it kind of does its own thing to reach a decision, a conclusion, a deduction, if you like. And then the blissful sheath is established in ignorance. So you can, again here, it is a form of the causal body, and it is ignorance of everything, as in deep sleep. So you know it's there, but you don't really know. So that's really what the blissful sheath is. So now you would have probably, so before we go on bringing everything together, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to look at the implications of what we've done so far and what we've looked at. So this is not going into the atman again already, but it's just to look at a very pragmatic level what we've learned. So I think last time I said one of the things of being able to look at the three bodies is you're able to kind of detach and able to see things for what they are. And when we're in pain, we kind of say, oh, my body is aching, so it's got nothing to do with you. You kind of make that distinction. But here today, what I wanted to talk about is understanding the sheaths and the body in some ways, and we'll see the overlap in a minute, can provide us an insight into personality types, and also into our personality at some point in time. You know, when we are really sometimes in our head all the time. So we know that we are identifying ourselves with a mental sheath a lot. Okay, so when we are always analyzing things, always rationalizing and everything else, so that's, we are in the Vijnana Maya Kosha, in the intellectual sheath. And then when we are kind of, you know, when we were getting the heartaches, when we are experiencing all kind of emotions, then we know we are, the space that we are in at the moment, we were kind of identifying ourselves with the mental sheath. Okay, so and also when we kind of become very conscious of our body and thinking about, you know, then that's the bit where we are concentrating. That's where we think, you know, this is who we are. We're just this body and that's it. And, you know, so this identification becomes very strong. So you will know amongst yourself, you might be able to see where you might put yourself sometimes, and where at different points in time, we might put ourselves in the different categories. So it's just nice to know, so that, you know, when you're going through things, you will know that, oh, this is where I am now. This is what's happening. And then later on, when we look at Atma, we will know that, and we will know that all these sheaths and all these bodies and everything there is actually temporary, right? So this is actually really helpful as well, because sometimes when we are very much experiencing ourselves in the Manomaya kosha, or in the mental sheath, where we are kind of full of emotion. I'm not saying emotion is bad or anything like that, but I'm just saying that, you know, if it is, then if it's making you sad or whatever, but it is something that we just accept. And then it's also something that we know deep down, we have the conviction that this too will pass, right? So this is a phrase that a lot of people use, this too will pass. And of course it will. And but sometimes it is good to know why it will pass, and what where does this phrase come from, and why, you know, so really sometimes, you know, we might find that when somebody say these things to us, and then, you know, they're saying it to us in front of us, and we're like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then the minute they go away, and then we go back, it's like, oh, this will not pass. And, you know, because sometimes this happens because we do not have the real conviction that this too will pass. So how long, we don't know, but, you know, it's just trying to take a little bit of a step back and try to see things slightly differently. So I think that this is sometimes really helpful to understand in terms of our personality, what's going on to us at the moment, and reflecting on where things are going, and also to help us sometimes put things in perspective. You know, sometimes it's kind of saying, oh yeah, you've got to put things in perspective, but then we may not have the knowledge that goes behind what perspective do we put in, what do we know. So it is really having that background of the knowledge of who we really are to kind of help us think about this. So the other thing that I thought was quite interesting, when I was talking about the dream state, I talked about that, you know, what comes in our dreams, those thought waves, if you like, they come from our sense organs, right? So they come from what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we experience. So therefore that kind of that kind of starts to make us think a little bit, you know. So being able to kind of maybe filter a little bit of what we see, filter a little bit of what we hear, might be quite helpful, because otherwise it's going to get ingrained in our mind, and these start becoming very strong impressions. Okay, so therefore I think in terms of stimuli, what we get from our sense organs, so this is something that we need to think about as well. So I always find it quite funny, and you know, and well, especially at the time when you know, when we were learning these things during the teachers training course, and so there we used to read little bits and things about what Swami Shivananda, which is the school within which I'm kind of trained, and what he used to say, well, obviously that was in the before 1950s in India, and was like, stop going to the cinema, and it's, you know, just and you know, stop listening to these things, stop watching the news, stop watching the newspapers, even at the time, and you know, and that's creates a sort of a lot of thought patterns into your mind. And I guess there is some truth in it. I mean, you know, when you're kind of really young and you're thinking, stop watching movies. I mean, come on, that can't be true. And you know, surely there's no good that can come to it. But that's not really what we mean. It's just kind of saying, well, actually, you know, just be mindful about, or conscious about what we're watching and what we are taking in, because these are things that are going to stay with us for a long time. So therefore, you know, it's just to think about these things. And I guess sometimes even now, looking at the news is not very cheerful. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but it's just saying, okay, so how much of that are you going to want to take in? And you are in control of that, of how much you want to take in and how much you don't. So it's just something to think about. Okay, so impressions, yeah, so I've talked about impressions already, but I will talk about impressions again when we come to when we talk about Vasana, when in future times. And I think I will have one session where we're going to talk about thoughts and their and things like that. So we'll talk about this in a lot more detail. So for now, I think this will do. So now oops, oh God, sorry about that. Oh, I really need to change my mouse. Okay, there we go. So the three bodies, the five sheaths, and the three states. So here I've just brought all these three together. So I had kind of digressed a little bit there, but so bringing all these together. So forget about the green if they don't make sense. So here, all I want to say is that these are various taxonomies or various paradigms or various ways of explaining the same thing. So basically, what we're saying here is the physical body is almost equivalent to the food sheath, and we experience it in the waking state. And in the waking state, actually, we also experience the physical body, the subtle body, and yeah, and so that should be the causal body here, not deep sleep. And so subtle body here is equivalent to the pranamaya kosha, to the vital air, to the mental sheath, and to the intellectual sheath. So that happened. So that becomes in prominence, if you like, in the dream state, but also in the waking state here, as we've said. And the causal body, so the Karana Sharir is the blissful sheath in this kind of parlance, if you like, and this is experience in deep sleep. So our glimpse of what this is when what we feel is when we're in deep sleep. So we will look at various states, and then we'll look at deep sleep again. But just to give you a little idea, is we have no control on when we go to deep sleep and when we come out and all that kind of stuff. But yogis, accomplished yogis, they people. So they can voluntarily be in those states, and we can't. So really that kind of state is very important, and we'll keep talking about it. But for now, just to understand that what we experience is in deep sleep, we feel in the causal body and the blissful body, which is total ignorance, but we just know that we were there and we're happy when we get up. Okay, so now, oh dear me. Okay, this is not good, is it? Oh, I'm really sorry about that. So now we come to this idea of what Atman is not. Okay, so in this philosophy, if you like, there is a lot of time to come to a conclusion. We go to the opposite. We use the opposite of what it's not to actually be able to explain what it is. Okay, so here, what Atman is not, it is not the three bodies. Okay, so the bodies, all the three bodies decay. All the three bodies have all these modifications we talked about, and the Atman doesn't. So it is beyond these three bodies. It is not these three bodies. So the Atman is not the five sheaths. It is above the five sheaths. So, and sometimes people use this term, which is kind of, again, one of those difficult terms to understand, is transcend. Okay, so it's where you kind of go above all this, and you can say you're transcending those states. And so identifying the Atman with the sheaths or bodies make it, this is make, not may, make it limited by that nature. So if we identify the Atman with the mental sheath, then the Atman is subject to emotions. The Atman is subject to all sorts of things that the mind goes through, which is not the case. So therefore, it cannot be one of these sheaths, because it doesn't experience all these things, that it is well above. So again, I've just said that already, is that we get a glimpse of it in deep sleep. So now, so what, okay, so yeah, so I really like this quote, if you like, from the text Tattva Bodha, which says, so again, thinking of the context, the Indian context, so as bangles, ear ornaments, homes, etc., are known as mine, but are different from the owner. So also the five sheaths, which are known by the self, so that's the Atman, and my body, my mind, my pranas, my mind, my intellect, and my ignorance, they are different from the knower. So it can't be the same, right? So if you know anything about grammar, there is the subject and then there is the object. So all these things about mine and my body, my mind, so they are the objects, and the subject is I, is the Atman. Okay, so basically, if we use my in front of something, then it is different from me, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, that's just to kind of give you the same idea, but just in a slightly different kind of words. So then, so what atman is sat. So you might remember these words from before. So it is existence, it is being, it is eternal, it is limitless, it is all pervading. So it hasn't got any form, so we can't see it. And that's what Sat is. And it is a fundamental part of all of the sheaths, a fundamental part of all of the three bodies, but then the atman does not change. So the atman is not subject to change at all, and it is always there. And so sometimes we say it is unborn, and it is immortal as well. So it is, if something is born, then it will die, right? So this is a fact. But here the atman is sat, so which means it is unborn, and also which means and by being unborn also means that it is immortal. And then there is this idea of chit. So you can see where we're going here. So it's Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So Chit is, again, something that we will look in a lot more detail. So it is awareness, it is knowledge, it is consciousness. So it is just the state of being. So the same self is present as the witness. So the same in all the three states, for instance, the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep, it's the same self that's there. And the self is just the witness, the mere witness, or so the Sanskrit word is sakshi, or sometimes people also use the word illuminator. So if there is no if there is no self there, then you don't really know what's going on at all. So this awareness, this knowledge, or this consciousness is what chit is. So it's simply there, present. And then ananda, which means in simple terms, it means bliss, or again, it can also be translated as a state of pure happiness. And it is a sense of being complete. So where you don't need anything else, there's no desires, there's nothing, there are no emotions, and one doesn't, there is no lack of anything at all. So that is that state of being completely, of being complete. So that really is what chit is. So basically, just to kind of recap a little bit, so we've started by looking at the body and saying that we're not the body. We've said that we are not the mind, we're not the intellect, we are not the pranas, we're not any of these, we're above all of that, and we are the atman, and we are we're eternal bliss, eternal awareness, and ananda. So here again, so just linking it a little bit to if you like, to talk number one, where we talked about happiness, and we talk about one of these fears that we have is the fear, one of these source of suffering is around likes and then dislikes, aversion, and then there is the fear of death. So you can see that once we understand we are the atman, all these fears disappear. So really there is, and now there is this idea of saying, oh right, okay, so I think yeah, okay, I kind of think this might be right, okay, I've got an understanding of it, maybe I'm not too convinced, and that's okay. I'm not asking you to kind of be fully convinced, and it takes a long time to actually even get an intellectual understanding of what we're saying. But then again, then you really need, then what we really need to be able to do is to know that, to be 100% convinced, and then we will be able to kind of, um, you know, manage these sufferings, these fears, in a completely different way. And then we are kind of beyond all this in many ways. So I think, so this is where I'm going to end. And normally, we would spend about an hour on the three bodies, another hour on the five sheaths, and but I think my aim here is just to kind of introduce these concepts to you, and just to get a little bit of an understanding, and then to sort of arouse your curiosity, perhaps, to look into it a little bit deeper. So before I finish, I just want to say that the next class is on the 6th of December, and here we're going to talk about the nature of the self, its relationship with the universe and the Lord. And so in the meantime, if you've got time, or if you want to kind of reflect a little bit about, just asking yourself, do I buy any of this? Do I really think I'm not this body? Do I really think I'm not this mind? Do I really think I'm not this intellect? And I am Satchidananda. So kind of really go through it in your head, and see whether, these are things that are that will make sense. And I will send you a few things that you can listen to as well. And also, you might want to, so those of you who did the Deepak Chopra meditation, you can go back to some of these. Some of them actually talk about these things. There were one that talked about Satchidananda, and ask you to do a meditation around it, and to, so really, if you've got, well, you still have access to this, so you can go back and try and understand it a little bit more. So I'll finish here with a prayer, and then we will have questions. So we will stop recording after the prayer. So before I do the prayer, I just want to say, so the prayer that I normally do at the end, I haven't put it here, is it says Om Purnamada Purnamidam. So where Purna means complete. So this is this idea of saying I am complete, and I come from this whole, and even though I come from this whole, the whole remains whole. So this is the, and sometimes in the yoga class we do, I think I'm not too familiar with the translation. Sometimes we say fullness, we use the word fullness instead of complete. So this is the same idea that we've been talking about. So we'll just end here, and closing our eyes. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.